Hey everybody, so my name is LaPrecious and welcome to my channel. Let's talk with LaPrecious. So today I'm going to be doing a YouTube tarot card reading video. Let me fix my camera a little bit so the lighting is better. Okay. Hey everybody, okay, so I'm going to do this again. Hey everybody, so my name is LaPrecious and welcome to my channel. Let's talk with LaPrecious. And today I'm going to be doing a tarot reading video about the famous group B2K. So let me tell y'all, when it comes to this verses that happened last week, it was ridiculous. I felt like this was the longest verses in the history of verses. This verses was almost 4 hours long, which was really too long. And I've heard that they get paid for doing these verses. I hope Omarion got paid top dollar because Mario, he only got like a snippet in at the end to do his set. But Omarion, he performed his whole catalog in the beginning. Then Bow Wow popped out, and then Ashanti popped out, and just it was just nothing but calamity and just turmoil and just all of this crazy stuff. And then on top of that, one thing that I didn't know that happened or whatever, I didn't know that when they was trash talking each other, that they really felt this way. I was thinking to myself like, they're probably just talking, talking mess and everything like that, blah blah blah. But when the blogs and stuff got a hold of it and a lot of this information started coming out, they was throwing like real shade at each other. So I'm like, okay, it's some, unresolved issues and stuff going on there. Then another thing that I did not like, I felt like this whole versus was like the ghetto version of the Millennium Tour. I mean, I'm being honest. Like, I went to the very first Millennium Tour when B2K was B2K with Omarion, J Boog, Raz B, Lil Fizz, like the whole four original members was there at the concert performing. And I loved it. It gave me nothing but pure nostalgia. It gave me nothing but imminent memories of when I was a kid and how I used to have their posters on my wall and all types of stuff. Like that was the Millennium Tour that I loved and I cherished. This second go around of the Millennium Tour, I cannot stand it. I'm tired of seeing Ashanti. I know everybody loved Ashanti. Everybody missed Ashanti. She had a good run. She could sing, but I'm sick of seeing her. With Bow Wow, we don't really see him too much, so it is what it is. Bobby Valentino, he pretty much did good. I'm tired of seeing Pretty Ricky. I'm tired of seeing Pleasure P perform. Grind with me. Relax your mind and take your time with me. I'm sick of hearing that. And then my body, your body's burning up. Like I'm sick of hearing that too. It's like I love Pretty Ricky. Spectacular was my favorite of everything. But it's like I'm sick of seeing y'all. And I'm sick and tired of seeing Ray J. Like Ray J has been everywhere from Love and Hip Hop. I remember around the time when they first did the Millennium Tour, IMX had came over on the side and did like their own little Millennium Tour thing where it was them, B5, Ray J, J Holiday, and that thing was a total disaster because Ray J either wasn't showing up, got mad, and was leaving. B5, they said B5 was showing out and kind of tussling a little bit with Jay Holiday, talking junk about them not being on time and not being there, and it was just like pure craziness. But I'm just sick of seeing Ray J being so silly and him doing a little old man crepit dance with one wish and just like go sit down somewhere. And then every time you turn around, you and Princess Love are together, then you getting divorced, you leaving her in Las Vegas, and just go away. Like, and then you're on the college hill thing, like Ray J, just go away and either get your own reality show, put out another album, do some other kind of music or something. But Ray J, you just need to sit down at this point because I'm tired of seeing you everywhere. Then Mario, he was able to hold his tone. He held his character, he held his verse, and all of that. Mario, his voice was good. Marion, he was just being silly, jumping all over walls, over the place. He's all, Afrocentric, unbothered. I'm in my Zen mode and whatever. And it's not playing out as good when you got the bitter Betties, of B2K coming out still saying stuff, about you and how you did B2K and everything like that. So I'm pretty much gonna go ahead and just drop the cards when it comes to B2K. So when it comes to B2K, we all know why they broke up. There was a lot of tension involved. A lot of money was being mismanaged. None of the houses that they had on MTV Cribs was theirs. I remember they said in the interview a long time ago that a lot of those houses was rented, that none of them even owned the houses or the cars. And Little Fizz even said that, I'm calling him Little Fizz, but Fizz anyway, he said in a separate interview that his mom was a school teacher and his mom had to put him up on game when it came to managing his money, getting royalties, and how every time B2K was mentioned, whether in a song on the radio, in a club, DJing, or whatever, he's supposed to get paid for that. So that's how his pockets have been set up since B2K disbanded and whatnot. Raz B, of course, in my opinion, Raz B just needs to heal. It's obvious that he got molested. It's obvious that whatever happened had happened. But he's been on this whole Chris Stokes molested me tour for the past 15 years, honestly. Like he's been exposing like Chris Stokes and Marcus Houston for a very long time, and it's obvious that something happened. But I feel like if y'all not gonna take this man to court and get him convicted like R. Kelly for child molestation, and get Marcus Houston down there in the courts too, then just wrap it up and just let it go. Because it's like Rasby, he of course, when you've been traumatized as a child and when you've been touched, that's hard for anybody to go through and experience. But I'm like, I just hope for B2K they just all move forward from this. My thing is that they at least had a beautiful legacy. They gave us plenty of good memories growing up. They were, one of the best R&B groups of the early 2000s outside of the 90s. Every album they came out with was good. Even the Christmas album they did was good. Them being, tied with IMX, kind of like that big brother, little brother thing they had going on. Then Janae Eco also came up with them. Because a lot of y'all may not know that Janae Eco, when she came out with the LP Selling Souls, that was her breakout moment. And she's been living in her moment for a while. But real B2K people know Janae Eco, she came out with B2K when she was singing like her songs and like the interludes and like the sample songs she was giving at like the end of the albums and stuff. Like that's Janae Eco we know and remember. And she even said the reason why she couldn't have a spot at that time was because there was so much focus on B2K, and then you had TGT with Seven Streeter, because Seven Streeter started out in a girl group before she became Seven Streeter, and so that was that whole spiel. But I just feel like everybody from J Book, Fizz, B2K, and I feel like Fizz needs to find his own identity because it's a known fact that B2K and IMX they do share women. A lot of the women they've been with have been passed around, and I'm not sure if Moniece, and I should actually read into that. I'm not sure if Moniece has been passed around like Jennifer Freeman and Mila J, because I know Mila J, Janae Eco's sister, was also dated and engaged to Marcus Houston for a really long time. Because Marcus Houston, for whatever reason, he decided to settle down with a Chris Stokes friend of the family, this wife he just had a baby with. But a lot of his girlfriends and stuff he had before then, it's like he would date them, then get engaged, and they would just be together forever and never get married. So it was what it was with that. Now, Raz B, there's been some speculations about him being gay, mainly due to him being molested and because of how he looks. And Fizz, in my opinion, he just needs to find his own identity. And and then a lot of people have had a lot to say about B2K and the whole aftermath ending and whatnot. So let's just go ahead and look into the cards when it comes to what happened with the Millennium Tour. So we all know the ending and whatnot, but let's see what the energy was between B2K's members at the beginning of the Millennium Tour. Because we got to remember, we saw Omarion and Fizz publicly on TV in a very long time on Love and Hip Hop Hollywood. And this was around like 2014, 2015 ish. And they were very like cocky. I remember when they got on there, they said, like, I'm sick and tired of everybody always saying, we were from B2K. They remember we from B2K. We was kids back then and blah, blah, blah. We're grown men. So people need to leave it in the past, let it go. It's like it was real cocky and conceited. I'm like, y'all didn't become Omarion and Fizz on y'all's own. If it wasn't for B2K, y'all wouldn't even be on this show. So the cockiness and the arrogance, it was like there. Plus, Love and Hip Hop Hollywood at that time was just trash, in my opinion. It was a lot of bullying, a lot of slandering going on. And April Jones, Marion's girlfriend, baby mama at the time, got treated by his mom like trash because she kept picking fights with him, being all up in her face, and Amarion's taking the mom's side over her. So it was just really messy, really messy. So let's see. So Spirit of the Universe, University itself, when it comes to B2K and the Millennium Tour reunion that was had in 2019, what made them want to get back together as a band and do the Millennium Tour? So Spirit is pretty much telling me that money was the main concern here. They knew that by themselves alone that there was like a big cash cow going on with B2K because B2K has been a very loved group ever since they came out in the early 2000s. It's been 20 years as of this year since their first album came out. And Spirit pretty much said like the main objective here is the money. That's what really drove them to get back together because they knew that they were well past the age of launching solo careers, well past the time of being, true R&B soloists and whatnot, and they just knew it was only fair to the fans because the fans have been asking for it for a very long time. Like when Omarion came out, it was a really big thing, and everybody pretty much loved Omarion. But we all love we all love Raspy and Fizz and Boog and Omarion and them together because they just had that pure R&B, street hood high school sweetheart, kind of mixture going on that all of us loved back then. Back when BET had 106 in Park and made you want to run home to go watch it, and they were on Soul Train on Saturdays, and they had the access granted behind the scenes videos and stuff. Like we wanted our childhoods back, so that's pretty much why they wanted to do this tour. It was for the fans, but it was mainly because of money. But there were a lot of tensions was rising high because the whole Chris Stokes situation had not really been resolved because, of course, Raz B in Los Angeles at the time, he had a flare up where he ran off stage, didn't show up, and said he didn't want to do the tour anymore. And it was mainly because of his paranoia. And this is me and Spirit speaking at the same time. There was a lot of paranoia that went on with him around the time because he was scared that Chris Stokes was going to do something to him, was going to come and hurt him or whatever. And you could tell that Raz B is pretty much traumatized. A lot of people, when people are abused, it starts off with the conditioning and with the always calling you out and snapping on you and getting your attention. Is all about the commands and the obedience and obeying your master. It's like a slave master ordeal. And that's pretty much what went on with Raz B and Chris Stokes because when it came to B2K, and it's sad that B2K was such a prolific time for them and us too as the fans, Raz B was abused in the midst of all of this. So when it comes to the songs and like the 8 counts and the rehearsals and stuff, it just like snaps him back into the memories of being molested. And I'm also seeing where there was some betrayals going on too around this time. I'm hearing it's a lot of women involved. Like women being in the mix and stuff like that with girlfriends and hurt feelings and unresolved issues was even bubbling up in the beginning of the B2K Millennium Tour because it had been a long time since they had really been together like that, rehearsing like they did back in the early 2000s as kids and whatnot. But it's also saying that a lot of them felt that thirst. It's like they were thirsty. It's like not only was this like a monetary gain for them, but it was also like a spiritual game for them because a lot of the members of B2K, except for Marion, they kind of felt empty. They felt empty because they had no more to give and no more to offer but B2K. Because I mean, B2K was their bread and butter, and yeah, they had love and hip hop, and they had solo careers and singles and stuff here and there, but it wasn't like the whole enchilada that really gave them that deep love and understanding and appreciation for life and talent like B2K did. So they pretty much had to find a way to fill their cups and to satisfy themselves and make themselves feel whole again because B2K is their legacy. So they feel like they had to pretty much do something that was groundbreaking and legendary. And Spirit is saying that there was a breakthrough, that there was some truths that was exposed, some truths that had to be told, and there was a lot of apologies and a lot of different things that was worked out amongst the group members during this whole reunion. So it was more so of a spiritual awakening that had happened with B2K because sometimes y'all know that tensions can be really bad with family members and group members, especially when you have betrayal and deceit and hurt and molestation and backstabbing, all that going on. Like people say, it's going to take the jaws of life or the hand of God to just put his hands on a situation and to just change it. And that's really what happened with B2K. There was a divine intervention that went on around that time, and that was the only reason why B2K was able to reunite for that magical moment and really get back to the basics again. So now I'm pretty much going to dive into the Millennium Tour energy, the whole energy, and then like the ultimate breakup. So, of course, when it came to the breakup, Omarion pretty much kicked B2K off or whatever. And then Raz B had came back around and said that, well, Omarion really can't go anywhere and mark it off of B2K because we did paperwork saying that only Fizzbug and Raz B have the legal entitlement to B2K and Omarion doesn't. Since he left the group, he left the name. And it makes sense to me because Raz B throughout the years has been performing under the moniker or the name of B2K. I remember way back, a long time ago, like back in 2006, 7-ish or 8-ish, he was over in China because I remember he was doing a lot of stuff in China and Asia with R&B music or whatever. And he was performing and singing under the name of B2K, and it was just him, Raz B. It wasn't no Boog, no Fizz, no nobody on his side. It was just him. So I could see some truth to that because by law, there have been a lot of other groups in music history that have gotten in trouble where individual members that don't have legal entitlement to the names have had to be stopped during performances, couldn't sing certain songs, and couldn't even have the name on a banner or even on like a drape on stage because it was seen as copyright infringement because they had no legal entitlement to the name. And so Rasby does have a point because he's been singing under the B2K name for the past 15, 16 years and nobody sued him or taking him to court about it. So there's some truth about him having that legal entitlement to the name. Now, one thing I'm going to read about is the energy of B2K during this whole Millennium Tour. So, Spirit of the Universe in itself, when it comes to B2K and the whole spiel about the reunion tour, like what was the energy that went on during the whole Millennium Tour the first go around? One, the thing about B2K, they made a whole lot of money during that first Millennium Tour. I remember when they did their first 5 shows, it was reported they made about $5 million. So that Millennium Tour, whoever came up with that, that was a very good idea. And needless to say, it was reported allegedly that B5 had came up with the idea and they had discussed it, I believe, with Omarion and maybe some other people in B2K. And unfortunately, they took that and ran with it and did the Millennium Tour, but left B5 out of it. But nevertheless, B2K, they made a whole lot of money out of this thing because I remember they said the first few shows they did, they made a cool like $5 million from that tour. What I'm seeing with the energy here throughout the whole Millennium Tour, the first go round, there was a lot of competition that went on individually. And when I say competition, the competitiveness was really strong as far as like who could sing better, who could be on key better, who could be more on point and whatnot. And it was a lot of indecisiveness that went on. I'm also getting a lot of bitterness too because with this card here, there was a lot of indecisiveness of whether should I stay, should I go, what should I do, where should I go, who should I be, what should I do, blah 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 blah. So that's pretty much what the energy was between the members, especially during the rehearsals, because I'm hearing there was a lot of tension. There's a lot of like hurt feelings, but it seems like they kind of had to work through their hurt feelings. It's like a lot of feelings from the past at this time was let go. And a lot of the members of B2K, they kind of had to work through their pain. It's like there was a lot of things that was done to them individually and a lot of hurt feelings, money missing, things not being right, being treated unfairly and stuff. And it's like they kind of had to mold through it. And that was where some of that bitterness that came from. But overall, it's like the rehearsals was pretty much fluid. I mean, they had been dancing for like most of their teenage lives. So the rehearsals, the singing and whatnot, it wasn't too bad. Now there was a sense in loss of direction because B2K they did a lot of promo during this tour. They did. They did a lot of promo during this tour. And I remember they were on the reel. They did like a Vibe cover magazine. I mean, they did a Vibe magazine cover and whatnot. So there was a lot of promo and a lot of coverage that they did. So of course they had to work through everything. They pretty much did their interview and whatnot. And like I said, divine intervention and breakthrough. It really broke through all of this. I feel like God knew, and this is what it's saying here, because there's like a lot of like spiritual stuff that had to be worked out and had to be used. And not because of what Marion becoming spiritual, but it's mainly due to God just seeing how valuable these guys really were and how valuable their careers and their legacy was. He oftentimes came in and just made it possible for them to do a lot of things. So there was a lot of divine intervention, a lot of risk. A lot of risks were involved, but they knew that they could not slip up during this tour because there was some contracts involved. They knew that they couldn't break the contracts or break the leases and whatnot when it came down to this because in order for them to really make their money and to do this tour and whatnot, everybody had to be like obedient. Everybody had to obey. It wasn't like Chris Stokes was the manager there, was running things and whatnot. It was like, our food being on the table, clothes being on our backs, kids being fed, this, that, and the third. Because everybody in B2K has kids, but Raz B, allegedly. Because I don't know about his personal life. It's like from seeing his life online and reading about him and everything, he comes off as somebody who does date women and maybe had a girlfriend or two, but he doesn't date like, the Monices and the April Joneses, Jennifer Freeman's. To me, he comes off as somebody who would date like the around the way white girl or maybe like a college white girl or something like that. But yeah, other than that, I can't really see Fizz really like having kids or really dating that much like that. But anyways, they pretty much had to stick to their guns about this because they're like, our bread and butter is with this, and we got bills and food to eat and all that kind of stuff, so we gotta work. I'm also hearing that with the strength, it took a lot of strength in them to really push through because there were times where they all felt like quitting and really didn't feel like performing again and stuff because it had been so long since they had been together for such a long period of time, like it was when they were kids, and there was a lot of hastiness and nastiness going on. But I'm also seeing some bad advice, ill advice that went on around that time during the tour as well, especially with money. It just seems like there was no game plan as to what was going to happen when this tour was over. Because yeah, there was talks about maybe another B2K album and maybe them officially getting back together and just doing stuff as a group and whatnot. But there was just a lot of like too many hands in the cookie jar, pretty much, that went on. So that's pretty much the feelings that went on with the B2K tour. Now I'm not gonna touch this verses because this verses is pretty much all laid out, and everybody's feelings and stuff has pretty much been spilled out after the verses. So I'm just gonna leave that there. But now I'm gonna really read into Chris Stokes, Janae Aiko, Moniece, and Raz B. I'm gonna really read into that situation and just figure out what happened. So Spirit of the Universe, Universe in itself. When it comes to Raz B and Chris Stokes, was he really molested as a child when he was under the care of Chris Stokes? Yes. Spirit is saying that he was molested by Chris Stokes and it was a brutal molestation. Like, this is something that was really chronic that happened to Raz B because it was something that started off as him being a child. Because the story goes that his mom was on drugs at the time and Chris Stokes was a long distance cousin of Rasby. Like, Rasby's mom and Christos were cousins. Because when you look at IMX and B2K, all of them was kind of like in the family. Because J Boog and Marcus Houston are cousins. They even have the same last name, Houston. So I believe that they're related through, I think his daddy, because I think his daddy was a Houston. So they're cousins through like the Houston line. Rasby and Chris Stokes are cousins. Now, Omarion and Marcus Houston being brothers, I remember they kind of lied to us about that back then. They're not related whatsoever. And I remember they said Fizz and Janae Aiko was cousins as well. That's a lie. They just did that for promo and to kind of make it feel more family oriented and everything. But yes, it is saying that Chris Stokes and Rasby did have an inappropriate relationship that went on for a span of 10 years. That's what I'm hearing. So it happened for a really long time. So yeah, that's what happened. Now, when it comes to IMX, Spirit of the Universe, Universe in itself, when it comes to IMX and Chris Stokes and Rasby, was there any type of molestation, coercion, or abuse that went on even within IMX, Rasby, Chris Stokes type of situation? Spirit is saying yes. Yes. Yes, because I'm getting that there was a lot of scenarios where people were taken advantage of. I'm seeing a lot of people getting taken advantage of in this situation. More so, Chris Stokes coercing the boys to have sex with one another. And this is not me repeating the stories that have been told over the years or recanting anything. This is just purely spirit speaking through to me to y'all. And yes, Chris Stokes did coerce a lot of things. He orchestrated a lot of things that went on between IMX and Rasby and a few members of B2K. And so yeah, it is true that Raspberry, Chris Stokes, and IMX and Marcus Houston, they were made to do things to each other. So there was a lot of molestation and coerced sex that went on in between them. Because what I'm getting is that there was a lot of vulnerability and a lot of people got taken advantage of. So it's just all out on the board. Now, when it comes to Marcus Houston, like, what is his role? Because Marcus Houston to me comes off as like the commander in chief of this whole thing. Because, he was Batman and IMX. He was the lead singer besides Romeo and CBD. And Chris Stokes, he was kind of like Chris Stokes' left hand man in some ways. Because even after IMX ended, Marcus Houston had a long standing solo career. He had MH because I believe Marcus Houston's career lasted from successfully it lasted from 2003 up until the Naked album. And then, he did like, and then he did like singles and stuff here and there, but they didn't really pop like his earlier stuff did when he was affiliated with IMX and B2K. And then it's like he had the movies, where he was with Karuchi Tran, where they play like the whole black Vietnamese family that was crazy and everything. Then he played in another TV One movie that was really good. I forgot the name of that one. So he pretty much focused on like his acting career. Then I remember in 2013 he came out with a song called "Give Our Love a Try" that featured Problem. And so, he had some singles like here and there, but it wasn't as successful as his image with that girl moving on it for me. She's fine as ever, she'll always be that girl. And then he had like Naked, and that was pretty much his whole slew. And then Circle, because he had the Veteran album, which was good. So it seems like Chris Stokes and Mark Simpson has pretty much been his henchman, like his right hand man. And it even seems like up until this day that Marcus Houston has been like the right hand man of Chris Stokes. So let's look into that. Spirit of the universe itself, when it comes to Marcus Houston and Chris Stokes, what was their relationship like throughout his whole career? It's like his it's like his partner in crime, is what I'm getting. But it's like some of this stuff still haunts him to this day. So what I'm getting is like Marcus Houston, he wasn't touched like that. He wasn't like molested like the ones. It's like Chris Stokes knew who to touch and knew who not to. It's like with Marcus Houston. Marcus Houston was like Chris Stokes' partner in crime. He saw like a lot of promise in him and a lot of favor in him as well. So he pretty much used him as like the muscle man to like coerce a lot of these things that was going on with B2K and IMX as far as like sexual allegations and stuff is concerned, because I'm seeing like he was pretty much the middleman, the one who mediated a lot of things and decided to do a lot of things. And he was the one in charge that got a lot of stuff started. But my whole thing is this is where we get into like the Jehovah's Witness conversion, because he doesn't sleep at night. I know this is like a cliche thing with people, how can you sleep at night? How can you live with yourself when you've done what you've done? It's saying right here that Chris Stokes and Marcus Houston mainly does not sleep easy at night with all of this stuff that is going on, which is why they ran to the Jehovah's Witness thing. Because I feel like it's real funny how when all of these allegations had went on with B2K and Raz-B being molested by Chris Stokes and everything like that, it's like, Chris Stokes and Marcus Houston, it was like, Raz-B is on drugs, he's lying, he doesn't know what he's talking about, he's gay, he's, been battling with his sexuality. A lot of deflecting and a lot of just trash talking him and saying he's crazy and all this type of stuff and drugs or whatever. And then I do remember like B2K was supposed to have like this reality show that was supposed to come out. And you could probably find like old clips of it on YouTube. This is back in like 2006, 2007 ish or whatever. And he was pretty much saying like, Chris Stokes did this to me. And it was just like real crazy. And Chris and Raz B was acting like very erratic. Like Fizz was like, I don't want to deal with that. Then Boog was like saying, well, we're just gonna have to pull this out and just really reveal some things. But Marcus Houston, Chris Stokes, they don't sleep easy at night, because it's funny how back then every interview that they did and when those allegations was brought out and discussed, they kept deflecting to saying Rasby is crazy, he's on drugs, he's lying, God help him, God bless his soul, and all this type of stuff. But it's like now that the kitchen is really hot to the point where it's about to burn y'all up and make y'all run out, now y'all are running to Jehovah's Witness, the Watchtower, because it's so funny to me how like y'all were like these real cool R&B people, and we got it. Just come and feel the flame of it's rain to shine, and all of that. And my first time and B2K, I don't let you on in this. Like y'all were all into that, and when this stuff was just little chatter and stuff on the internet, and when it wasn't catching steam, oh, Raspberry's crazy or whatever. But now, since everybody is saying something happened, where you got a Marion alluded to the fact that something happened, then you got Fizz and Moniece and the blogs and stuff are picking up because they're saying like some YouTubers were sent cease and desist orders by Chris Stokes personally in the mail. And I'm like, when people start getting legal letters and stuff sent out and everything, that's when something's up. That's when somebody is either lying, where it could be a defamation of character case, or somebody's telling the truth and somebody's scared of getting caught and getting convicted. And I feel like the getting caught, getting convicted part, that's where that comes in at, because it's funny how when all this stuff caught steam, now Chris Stokes and his whole family are Jehovah's Witnesses. They all got the same cut. They're talking about, oh, Jehovah has blessed me. I have the love of God and Jehovah in my life, and showing pictures of them at like the Watchtower meetings and stuff on Saturdays with the congregation. You dressed up in suits, you got your beard cut, looking all clean and everything, like you're a pastor or a minister. And it's like, and even Chris Stokes is like, talking about Jehovah God and his daughter, and even his daughter's husband is a Jehovah's Witness. And they have that whole, how Jehovah's Witness people are all about family and everything and not being of the world. But Jehovah's Witness people, and some people may be offended by this, but to me, Jehovah's Witnesses are like a cult, because I've known a lot of Jehovah's Witness people, and they claim to almost be better than God. And it's like, if you do something that's like not Christian, like not God, like, oh, that's the devil, oh, that's Satan, we don't watch this, that. And they be some of the biggest hypocrites you have ever seen. I'm like, y'all sure do act really like all out of sorts and out of order, and not really all that loving of the Lord when it comes to being a Jehovah's Witness, when you're not in the watchtower or doing these services or like trying to convert people. Because Jehovah's Witness people, they have the whole thing down pat when it comes to ministering and giving the word of God. But when it comes to living it out, they're worse than Baptist people, in my opinion, from what I've seen. So I feel like the Jehovah's Witness thing is a cover up. I really do, because it's funny how throughout the years when y'all did this whole thing, nobody was running to God and Jesus or anything like that. But now, since it's catching steam, now y'all love the Lord and Jehovah is y'all's witness. So, okay. But yeah, that's pretty much how Chris Stokes and Marcus used to have been throughout the years with this whole thing. Another thing that I want to say is, let's see, not so much as me. Let's see what else can we get out of this. Let's see about B2K. Were any of them ever molested or touched? Spirit of the universe, universe in itself. When it comes to B2K and Chris Stokes, besides Raz B, were any of them ever molested or abused? Some of them were, some of them weren't. Spirit is saying that Fizz and Bug were the ones that were molested and touched per se. Because, and it's also saying that there's some witnesses too. And there's some regrets about not speaking up about what happened and what was done wrong and why things didn't work out. Because it's a lot of like, Spirit is saying there's some R. Kelly energy going on in here. Because a lot of this stuff is like bona fide child molestation. And then I'm seeing like with the Hermit card, they were made to keep quiet about it. It's like Raspy is like the sweet, sensitive soul, and that's really why he got molested. And I hate to say it, but when it comes to people who are really sweet and genuine and whatnot, they get taken advantage of the most, because he was like in the worst case scenario of becoming a victim. His mom was on drugs. He didn't have nobody else to take him in. So he needed like a father figure and guidance and stuff. Then he had this talent. He was in a group. So it's like a lot of his childhood and things like that were really taken away. But there was a lot of forced energy that went on where you didn't see nothing, so don't say nothing. What happens on this bus stays on this bus. Don't nobody talk about nothing. Don't nobody go home and tell nothing to your parents or your family members. And Spirit is also saying the family members knew about it as well. Because the only parent that I've seen from B2K be the most vocalist is Omarion's mama. Because she used to be on the show. And then I say, like, Omarion's mama, it is what it is. And then, they even said that, J Boog slept with Omarion's mama. And I'm not surprised at that, because Omarion's mama, she had him when she was what? 15, 16 years old. Because I remember he showed something on his IG page where she was pregnant when she went to the prom. And so it's like she pretty much grew up with Omarion. And a lot of times, and I hate to say this too, not all, but a lot of women who usually have kids young and stuff like that, and they grow up with their kids, they're not really mature themselves. Because it's like when they became an adult at such an early age, it's like they just can't get that mindset of being an adult and being grown. It's like their minds, for whatever reason, just stays that teenage little girl who got pregnant and who's always going to be young forever and everything, and doesn't have to grow up and be mature as long as she's the mama. She calls the shots and makes the rules and whatnot. And that's pretty much what the case is with Omarion's mama. So that's why there was a lot of tension and stuff going on with April Jones and everything like that. So, um, but yeah, there was a lot of secrecy that went on. So, and with this high priestess energy, like his Omarion's mama definitely knew what was up, but it's like she protected him. So Omarion was the least touched. It's like he was coerced to do some things, but it wasn't as rigorous as it was for the other ones. Because that's where a lot of that bitterness and stuff comes off as it's just like anybody, especially when you deal with Christianity, where the people that are less favored by God or less favored in life, they tend to have issues with the favored people because they had to go through so much. But it's like the favorite people, they saw what was going on and they maybe got touched here and there, but they didn't have to go through it as rough or harder as the other ones did. So yeah, there was a lot of like protection around Omarion that went on around that time, and that's where a lot of this bitterness and stuff comes from. So now that we looked at the child molestation situation, let's really look at the Millennium Tour number 2, the second round of the Millennium Tour. So, Spirit of the Universe in itself. Besides the whole April Jones Fizz situation, what was the final demise of B2K in this whole situation? Really, jealousy is what's coming on because there's like a lot of tension going on here. Because what I'm getting is that a lot of them feel like, but Omarion, there was a lot of missed opportunities that went on, a lot of feelings that weren't considered, and a lot of concerns that went unheard within the group. And I'm also getting that it just wasn't a happy situation. Like a lot of people was being dissatisfied because they felt ignored once again. And once again, there was a lot of tension and a lot of jealousy. Like a Marion, you getting all the cake and we not getting a piece of the cut. So why should you continue to like be this and yada 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 and all that kind of stuff? So that's pretty much what went on with B2K and this whole like scenario of things. Like, why was it that you got saved and we didn't? Yada yada yada. So that was like the final straw with the B2K Millennium Tour, the second go round. There was just a lot of feelings that just weren't heard, a lot of things that, that needed to be said but couldn't be said, and just a lot of unnecessary drama and whatnot. Now let's pretty much look at the future of B2K. Spirit of the Universe itself. When it comes to the future of B2K, will there be another B2K reunion? Will they ever come to terms with each other? Will they ever get back together? Yes or no? It's a strong no. Yeah, like that ship has sailed. It is a very strong no. Yeah, it's a strong no, and there's a lot of uneasiness about it too, because they know, like from the first go around, like it was fun when they was kids, and they did experience a lot of success, a lot of joy, and a lot of money, but it didn't last long. And another thing that went wrong is just that they just know that there's not going to be much opportunities and it's going to get old. Because I didn't even know Marion's 38 years old. And not that age matters, but I didn't know he was that much older than the other ones. Because everybody else, I think, is still like in their mid 30s or so. But yeah, it's like they're really like, pushing 40 and everything. And, Marcus Houston, I think he's about to turn 40, if not 40 already. So it's like that ship has sailed because even Marcus Houston has said that they're not in their 20s or anything like that anymore. They're older and they have families and stuff. So things are a lot different. But yeah, Spirit is saying that that ship has sailed. So it's like if you didn't see B2K during the Millennium Tour or back when they first came out in the early 2000s, you're just not going to see them again because it's like from this whole situation, it's just really messy. It's just really messy. There's a lot of hurt feelings, a lot of disoriented things going on, and there just isn't a set case for things. There just isn't a lot of there's just not a lot of love going on here. There's just not a lot of love going on. So the final question that I'm going to do is if Raz B is going to get justice for what Chris Stokes did. Spirit of the universe in itself. When it comes to Raz B and Chris Stokes, will Raz B get justice for what was done to him? I'm getting a no. Because Spirit is saying that once a lot of like delegations have been made and maybe some disagreements have been hashed out and whatnot, that everybody's just going to pretty much move forward and move on. And Raspberry is going to have to do it too because it's like you're going to have a solid case. And since this all happened such a long time ago, and since there was a lot of like mishaps that went on, and just it's just been a long time and there's not just going to be much of a breakthrough here. It's like there's going to be a little bit of a breakthrough where he may get maybe a minor charge or he may just get something, but it's not going to be a major victory like an R. Kelly situation. It's just not. So I hope you all like this video. Don't forget to leave a comment in my comment section and subscribe to my YouTube channel and have a good day.